Thank you. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. So said William Shakespeare in the play As You Like It, written in 1599. 417 years later, those words still ring true. Think about it. In life, we perform on many different stages. I have a home stage, a work stage, a social stage, to name but a few. And on those stages, we play many different parts. So I'm a husband, I'm a father, a business owner, a speaker, an entrepreneur. Often, we're the supporting actor in the scene. We let other people take the lead. And then there are the moments when we step into the spotlight, when we become the star of the show. And it's in those moments that we need to shine. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an employee, working for a small startup or a global corporation, communication, how you show up, how you translate your business brand and your personal brand is vital to the future of your business. Communication is at the heart of everything we do. When it's going well, it's almost effortless. We achieve a state that actors describe as being in flow. It's invisible. The audience is engaged, the message is clear, everyone's having a good time until someone drops the ball, until the communication breaks down and all of a sudden the message becomes a little bit muddy. The audience takes a step back and no one's having fun anymore. In business, the opportunity to sort of stand in that spotlight presents itself numerous times a day in pitches and presentations, meetings, conference calls, internally, externally, one-to-one or one-to-many. Standing center stage in this sort of place isn't always the most comfortable place to be. But if we choose to seize the opportunity, then it can make a massive difference to ourselves, to our teams, to our organizations. These are the events that have the potential to drive our story forward. So that's what I'd like to explore with you today, how you get comfortable in this space, how you get comfortable sharing your message, how you get your brand out there so that people buy into it. Because ultimately, people buy from people. So I'm going to share with you the 5 key ingredients for making you and your business shine. These 5 things underpin all the work that we do at my company, Inflow Training, and I've been lucky enough to share them with audiences all around the world. Whether we've been working on change management programs with global organizations, helping senior leaders create more impact, working with sales teams to perfect their negotiation skills, or working with graduate employees to define their personal brand. These 5 things all play a key role. Now, this stuff isn't theory. These are the practical lessons I learned on my journey from relatively shy schoolboy to actor in a Hollywood film. Now, I played a little bit of music on the way in, and I appreciate that in Latvia, Thunderbirds might not be a big thing. But this is me playing Virgil Tracy in the Hollywood remake of Thunderbirds with Sir Ben Kingsley and Bill Paxton. That's me fulfilling a childhood dream, to star in a blockbuster movie. It was amazing. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing at the keyboard there, but it must have been very important. I got to live out a dream in that situation, and I want to share with you the lessons that I learned along the way, because it wasn't always like that. If you'd have met the younger me, you'd have met a pretty unconfident, pretty reserved kid who used to go bright red whenever he had to get up to speak. So what I'd like to do today is share those lessons that I learned along the way so that you can apply them in your life and in your work so that you shine on your stage next time you're in the spotlight. Now, before we do that, I'd like you to ask yourselves a couple of questions. The first question is, when are you most comfortable in the spotlight? Out of all those roles that you play, the different sides of yourself that show up in your businesses, the different hats that you wear, where do you feel most comfortable? Where are you most at home? And then secondly, where would you like more impact? Where could your brand, your personal brand, use a little bit of a boost? Where would you like more confidence? So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to turn to the person sitting next to you. You've got 2 minutes just to answer those 2 questions. Off you go. No? Thank you. Okay, another 10 seconds. Okay, very good. So some passionate conversations going on there. What I would like you to do is bear in mind your answer to question number 2 as we go through the 5 ingredients and have a think about how the things that I'm going to share with you apply in those situations. So the first key ingredient for a business that shines, for a personal brand that shines, is this thing, stance. And it's one of the major building blocks of communication, and it's something that I think a lot of people underestimate the power of. Now, I didn't go to a university, I went to a drama school, and getting into drama school is a bit like getting onto the X Factor. Do you have X Factor here, or Pop Idol? Yeah. For the school that I went to, 30 places, 3,000 people applying. So the odds are pretty stacked against you. In fact, by the time I arrived for my final audition at drama school, I'd already been rejected by the 5 other schools that I'd applied for. So the stakes were pretty high at this point. It was a cold June day as I walked down the Prince of Wales Road in central London. And I glanced up from my map. Do you remember those? Yeah, you used to walk around with a map, not your smartphone. And I saw in front of me this really imposing building. It was a former Methodist church, and it had big columns outside of it. And there was a tiny little sign in black and white that said, "Auditions this way." I took a deep breath, and I followed the arrow. Now, if you'd have been with me at that audition, you'd have been sitting in a near-silent waiting room with 4 or 5 other would-be actors sort of studiously going through the lines that they were about to speak. You can literally feel the tension in the air. My mouth was dry, my hands were sweaty, and after about 25 excruciating minutes, the woman at the front desk finally called my name, and it was my turn to face the judges. Now, I walked through this creaky black door, and as I walked through there, I saw a sight that I will never forget. I'd walked out into the main chamber of the church. The room was about as big as this, but the ceilings were twice as high, and around the edge there was a balcony. No one else in the room but a panel of 12 emotionless faces. And literally, my heart, we say in English, my heart was in my mouth. I could hear my heart beating in my chest. My mind was just kind of going off at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but no words would come out of my mouth. I was kind of frozen to the spot. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I heard a voice. Run around the room. And I looked in front of me, and there was, in the middle of this panel, there was this tiny little guy, this little hunched figure. And I'd later discover that his name was Jaap Malgrim, and he was the 80-year-old co-founder of the school. And I kind of looked at him, and he looked at me, and he gestured with his arm and repeated the phrase, "Run around the room." Now, that's not the kind of thing that you expect to hear in that sort of situation, but I was young, I was impressionable, I desperately wanted to be an actor, so I did what I was told. Took off my bag, put it down, and I went for a little jog. And as I started to do these laps of the church, this sort of strange thing happened. I started to relax. My nerves completely disappeared and my mind became clear. In about a minute and a half, I'd gone from this ball of adolescent tension into this confident young actor about to recite Shakespeare. And in that moment, I made a really important discovery. The mind and the body are linked. When I walked into that room, my nerves had literally kind of been seeping out of me all over the place. And we see it all the time. We see it in business. We see it in meetings and presentations. People that are saying one thing, but their body language is telling you that they'd really rather be anywhere else. Now, of course, there's the big stuff, the kind of the crossed arms, the downward gaze. But then there's the micro stuff too. You know, the face rubbing, and the finger picking, and the toe shuffling. And then you start to add that all together, and you get what I like to call the awkward dance. Now, it's rare, but I have seen it. So even on a micro level, even that stuff that we don't really know that we're doing, that stuff has the impact on our audience that tells them that we're not 100% confident with our message, that we don't believe 100% in what we're saying. However, if the mind and body are linked, we have a massive opportunity. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a little bit of an experiment with you. Are you happy to play along? Oh dear. Are you happy to play along? Yeah? Okay, so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to imagine that you're having the worst day of your life. Okay, I want you to assume you're losing the will to live body position. Okay, just do that in the chair for me right now. Oh, it's been a terrible day. There's lots of puddles in Riga, so you were walking in here, bus came past, you got soaking wet, you were late. It's just really, really terrible. And I want you to have a couple of sighs out for me. Just go, and again, It's international language, that, isn't it? Okay. Now, just notice what starts to happen, how you start to feel. In about 20 seconds, the kind of atmosphere in the room changes. We start to feel a little bit less confident. We start to feel a little bit less engaged. We start to think about lunch and all the other sorts of things that are going to happen. Now, we will get there, but before we do, I'd like you to sit back up again for me. Just sort of shake that off, because I don't want that energy in the room. But it proves the point. If the mind and the body are linked, if we can use our body in an unconfident way and come across as unconfident, then what happens if we use our body in a confident way? How do we start to feel? So is anyone feeling brave? Could I have a volunteer? Would someone like to come and join me up on stage? Hand came straight up there. Give him a big round of applause. Welcome. What's your name, sir? Maxims. Max. Okay, let's call you Max. So, Max, what I would like you to do is I would like you to stand here and I'd just like you to face the audience for me, please. Very good. Now, Max, I probably should have asked you this before you got up here, but do you mind if I touch you?
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So, Max, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few little adjustments to your posture to see if we can kind of get you in that space where you're going to completely own this stage. Is that all right? Okay, fantastic. So could you put your feet together for me? Could you turn them out to 45 degrees and then pivot on your toes? So your feet are now hip width apart. Okay, very good. Just bring them in slightly so that they're directly underneath your hips. We're just going to think about hips. Gents, we have a tendency to walk through life with certain parts of our anatomy thrust forward, yeah? I don't know why, but ladies will attest that we do. So we just want to bring those back a little bit. We're going to start to open up the shoulders. We're going to start to make you a little bit taller than you are. Okay, very good. How's he looking now? Do we like this? Yeah? Yeah, give him a round of applause. Okay. In fact, we're going to go one step further. What I would like you to imagine, ladies and gentlemen, is that Max is your favourite pop star, okay? And he's here to give a concert, one night only in Riga. And I want you, in this second, I'm going to count you down. I want you to go completely wild, okay? Clapping, screaming. 1, 2, 3. Go on, Max. Sort of soak that up. Notice how that feels. Yeah, bring it on. Keep that going. Fantastic. All right, and stop. Very good. Max, how do you feel? Awesome. Yeah, awesome, right? So what I want to challenge you to do is I want you to take that stance with you back to your seat, and I want you to keep hold of it for the rest of the day. And I want you to notice how many people come up to you at lunchtime for your autograph, all right? All right, give Max a big round of applause. Thank you. So, the whole thing is about awareness. Are you aware of the signals that you're giving off? Because if you are, you can change them. You can choose which bits you want to turn up and which bits you want to turn down in any given circumstance. And it's not acting. I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter, and that body position that Max just had is exactly how my daughter walks. She's like, hello, Daddy. Yeah, little Buddha belly. But we lose it. We become teenagers, things become awkward, we start kind of closing ourselves down, and all of a sudden we're sending out a different signal to the world. So I'd really encourage you to think about how you show up for your business, in your team, in your organization. What impact do you make? What connections are you making by the way you literally walk into the room? Because this thing, your stance, is incredibly powerful. So you'll be pleased to know that after that audition in front of the panel, I got offered a place at drama school on the spot. And the next 18 months were fantastic, or so I thought. I kind of doing all the classes. I had to do ballet. I'd never done ballet before. It was all that. Very strange. But I worked my socks off. I worked really, really hard. And I thought things were going brilliantly. Until one afternoon, my world came crumbling down. Now, at the school that I went to, they were very old-fashioned in some of their traditions. And at the end of each term, all the tutors got together and they discussed the progress of all the actors on the course. And if they thought that you weren't kind of doing well enough, then you got invited to meet the principal. And that was not the invitation that you wanted to take up. It was generally accepted that you never wanted to go for what they called an interview. So on the last day of term, everyone would kind of wait in the canteen, and one of the administrators would come out and she would pin this list on the notice board. And if your name was on the list, then it meant that you had to come back the following week and have this meeting. And after 18 months of avoiding that at all costs, my luck had suddenly run out. So I spent a very tense weekend waiting to discover my fate. And by the afternoon of the Monday morning, when I walked into the principal's office, I built myself up into a little bit of a state, because I was the sort of student that tried really hard. I ticked all the boxes. I did everything that everyone asked me to do. So I walked into his office, and the first thing that I noticed is Yat, Mr. Run around the room, wasn't there. Okay, he hadn't even bothered to show up, so this was not going to be a good meeting. And Christopher, the principal, looked at me across the table and he said, well, darling, because all actors call each other darling. He said, well, darling, You've been here for nearly a year and a half now, and we haven't seen you do anything. And I was kind of like, what? Well, I've been doing my ballet, I've been doing all this like acting stuff. He said, I don't think you'll ever be an actor. Why don't you go and be a casting director or something? Now, for an actor, for a would-be actor, that's about the ultimate insult. Yeah, that's not what you want to hear from the principal of your drama school. And I just couldn't understand. I kind of like tried to process what was going on. I had tried so hard. I'd done all the things that they'd asked me to do. I've done everything that I could to impress them, and that is when the penny dropped. I was no longer being true to myself. I'd completely lost touch with who I was, with my values, with why I wanted to be an actor. When I auditioned for drama school, it was because I was an amateur in the true sense of the word. I absolutely loved what I did. And a year and a half later, and if I was really honest with myself, I hated it. Every time I had to walk out on stage, I used to go bright red. I'd feel sickeningly nervous. And so I took a moment to reflect. And I looked at him across the table. And I said, you're wrong. I am an actor, and a bloody good one at that. And he kind of went, well, all right, darling, you've got 12 weeks to prove it to us. If you don't do something by the end of next term, we're going to ask you to leave the school. So I went away for the holidays, and I spent a couple of days just feeling pretty depressed about the whole thing. And then I clicked into action. And I thought, you know what, I've got to show them who I am. I've got to let my audience know what I stand for. And I came back to the school, and I spoke with the director that was going to be working with us on that next project, and I told him I didn't want him to let me off the hook. If for a second he thought that I wasn't being really me, I wanted him to tell me. No holds barred. We were just going to be very honest in our conversation. And over the course of that term, I fell in love with acting again. It was amazing. Suddenly I was sort of showing up, and I was having fun. It was a pleasure to be on stage and to be with those other people. And we got to the final performance, and I have to say, I went out there and I really didn't care what anyone else thought. I just went out there and I played. And after the performance, I met the principal on the steps of the school outside, and he just looked at me, nodded, and he said 5 words. Well done, darling. Well done. And that was that. So the next ingredient of a business that shines, of a personal brand that shines, for me is honesty. I believe that the future of business is in social connection. It's how we show up with our audiences, what we reveal of ourselves to our clients, to our customers, to our colleagues. We need to think about the stories that we want to tell. And it doesn't mean kind of bearing all the skeletons in the closets and sort of telling all our deepest, darkest secrets. It just means allowing people to see a little bit more of who we are, what we truly value, what we stand for. And, you know, sure, if we do that, there'll be some people that don't like what they see, but isn't it better to kind of have that conversation? To really stand for something and be known for something rather than try and please every single person out there. So I would encourage you to think about how you show up, how you make those connections with your audience so that maybe, just maybe, they can sort of start to fall in love with who you are and the things you do. The next ingredient that I'd like to share with you is something that kind of underpins all the work that you do as an actor, and is probably the kind of most revolutionary tool that I think that the world of acting has got to share with the world of business. And rather than just tell you about it, I'd like you to experience it for yourselves. So could I ask everyone in the room to stand up, please? Pop all your stuff down. So what I'd like you to do, in a second, you're going to have a conversation with your partner. So you're going to talk to the person standing next to you. I like to call this exercise the Robert De Niro exercise, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to have a conversation with the person standing next to you. In a second, the person A is going to say the words, "Are you talking to me?" Okay? And partner B is going to respond by saying, "Are you talking to me?" And this conversation is just going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until I tell you to stop. Okay, is that clear? Yeah? All right, "Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?" And just keep going, repeating the line. Off you go. Okay, stop. Cool, you're very polite. If I do this in London, I'm having to pull people apart from each other at the end. Okay, so what happened? You started to, I'm assuming you started to change some stuff. You didn't just go, "Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?" You sort of changed some stuff. So maybe you changed the emphasis. "Are you talking to me?" is very different from "Are you talking to me?" which is very different for "Are you talking to me?" Yeah, where we place the emphasis signposts to our audience the message that we want to land. You might have changed the speed, you might have changed the pitch, you might have changed the tone. You might have played around with all sorts of different things. But all of that stuff is kind of mechanical. And as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, you don't want to have to think about your performance in sort of such a scripted way. I don't want you going away from this session going, "Dominic said that I must speak louder on certain words," because that's just weird, okay? So what I want to do is I want to share with you a tool that actors use, that we all use actually in real life, that allows you to bring your message to life, allows other people to engage with what you're talking about. And it's this idea. The idea is the idea of intention. Now, as I said, I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter, and kids are a brilliant example of this. Intention is about tactics. So you have your objective, you have what you want to achieve, and then you have lots of different ways of getting there. Okay, so now my daughter keeps asking me for chocolate all the time. She's like, "Daddy, can I have some chocolate?" No. "Daddy, can I have some chocolate?" No, darling. "Daddy, I love you." "Can I have some chocolate?" "Oh, yeah, go on then, fine." Okay, and she's used different tactics to get what she wants. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the same line of text, "Are you talking to me?" And what I'd like you to do is play two different intentions. So the first intention that I have for you is I would like you to try and amuse your partner, okay? You've got to try and make them laugh. You've got to try and make them smile. With that line, "Are you talking to me?" And the other one is to threaten. Okay, see if you can kind of scare them, get them to leave the building. So amuse and threaten. And I want you to try both. Okay, so have a couple of goes at amuse, have a couple of goes at threaten, and just see what happens. All right, off you go. Amuse and threaten. Go. Okay, very good. Before anyone gets hurt, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's getting a little bit feisty. Give yourselves a big round of applause and take a seat. Very good. Just a very quick show of hands. Who felt amused by their partner at any point? Yeah, a few funny people in the room. Maybe when your partner was trying to threaten you, you felt a little bit amused. Who felt threatened by their partner at any point? This person in the middle. Okay, so it's really useful exercise because they're the people not to talk to at lunchtime, all right? But seriously, if we think about this in a business context, we need to start to think about what we're trying to make our audience feel. So what are we trying to do to them? What sort of journey are we trying to take them on? Are we trying to educate them? Are we trying to inspire them? Are we trying to challenge them? Are we trying to engage them? Are we trying to amuse them? What is your intention? Because essentially communication is about taking people from A to B. You've got to go on a journey. We don't want in our interactions with people for them to be in the same place at the beginning as they were in the end. And our intention helps us do that. It helps bring those words to life. And this isn't just something for kind of presentations. This is something that you can use in meetings. This is something you can use in one-to-ones when you're thinking about your marketing. Any sort of interaction that you have, I would really encourage you to think, what's the intention behind this? What do I want that person to feel? Because I think we kind of shy away from emotion in business. We start to focus on our content. And there's one word that I absolutely forbid you to use, okay? And it's this word, inform. I'm pretty confident that no one has ever walked out of a meeting before and gone, oh, I feel so informed right now. Yeah, I'm really updated. Like, we just don't do that, do we? We want to have a human interaction. We want to feel excited about the prospects or scared about what's to come. So if you can start to think about the intention behind your communication, you start to bring your brand to life. You start to take people on a journey. It no longer becomes grey and whitewashed. It starts to become nuanced. It starts to be interesting. It starts to be novel. The next ingredient that I've got for you is this word, narrative. And I think that narrative is probably wholly responsible for my Hollywood movie debut. I've been out of drama school for about 18 months, and I've been having a reasonably successful career. I'd done a few kind of period dramas, a bit of theatre, and it was kind of all going all right, but I was waiting for my big break. So you can imagine the excitement I had when my agent phoned me and she said, Dominic, I've got you this audition with Mary Selway for a thing called Thunderbirds. Now, I appreciate that if you're not in the film industry, Mary Selway's name might not be something that you know, but actually Mary was one of the most prodigious casting directors of the British film and theatre world. She'd done Star Wars, she'd done Indiana Jones, With Nell and I, Love Actually. The list was just enormous. So it was with real excitement that I turned up to Mary Selway's office for this audition. And I've been told that they were at the very early stages of casting the role, so that there was no script to prepare. It was just a little chat. So I turned up to Mary's office. She was lovely. We sat down. We started having a conversation. And then she turned the conversation around to accent. And she told me that they'd been having real trouble finding British actors who could do a convincing American accent. So she sort of said to me, so, you know, how's yours? And I thought, oh, this is my moment. So I took a deep breath and I played with the truth a little bit. So I said, well, I went to an American international school. True. I've got a lot of American friends. True. And since going there, I've picked up a little bit of an American twang, and I've done 3 years at drama school working on accents, so my accent's pretty out there. Not true. And she looked at me across the desk and she went, fantastic. In that case, here's the script. Would you mind going into the car park for 5 minutes and have a read of the scene and then come back and we'll put you on tape? And I just was like, the world dropped out. She completely called my bluff. So I walked out into the car park and I thought, how do I rescue this situation? So I kind of tried the lines a couple of times in the American accent. And there comes a point, you know that point where you just think, I've got to do this. No amount of work is going to help. So I walked back into her office, and as I walked in, there was a camera pointing towards me, and she was on the opposite side of the desk, and she sat down, and we started to read the scene. And we got to the end of it, And she looked at me and she said, "Okay, darling, well, I would like you to come back in 2 weeks' time and meet the director at Universal Studios offices in central London." And I thought, oh my goodness, I've done it. Like, that must have been fantastic. So I kind of shook her hand and said, "Thank you so much." And I started to walk towards the door. And she went, "Oh, Dominic." And I turned back and looked at her. And she said, "Make sure you work on that terrible American accent." So I did. I went into overdrive. I went back and met with some of my American friends. I hired an accent coach, and I did everything that I could to be ready for the meeting. And I walked into the office, and as I walked into their waiting room, there were 7 other guys that looked exactly like me. So I took a deep breath, and I did actually some of the stuff that I've highlighted here. I wasn't aware of it then, but I was working on my stance. I was kind of thinking, how does a superhero walk? Okay, not like this. So I got my superhero walk on, and I kept myself to myself, and I was thinking about my intention, that I wanted to convince them that I was the right person for the job. And I walked into the office, into this big boardroom table, and sitting at the other end was Jonathan Frakes. Now, Jonathan Frakes was one of my childhood heroes. He was Riker in Star Trek. And I was just so sort of excited to see him. I was like, "Can I have an autograph?" But I didn't do any of that. I kept the superhero. And I sat down and we started having a conversation. And he started talking about how they were having difficulty finding a British actor who could do the American accent. And at that point, Mary Selway piped up and she went, "Oh, don't worry, Jonathan. Dominic used to go to an American international school, so he's got the accent sorted." And I'm thinking, oh, goodness. So we sat down and we read the scene, and I was reading the scene with Jonathan and got to the end of it, and there was this pause. And it seemed to go on forever. And then he stood up. He's a really big guy, about 6'4", and he pointed at me and he went, "Now there's an American accent." And I was just like, yes, I've done it, like dancing inside. This is absolutely fantastic. Now, I don't think that my accent was that good. In fact, when we shot the film, I worked with an accent coach every week to get me ready to speak the lines. What happened was the power of story. It was the story that I told Mary and that Mary had told Jonathan, and that we're just hardwired for this stuff. He was preconditioned to hear a good accent because of the story that she told. So I want you to think about your narrative, the stories that you tell in your business, because they are so, so powerful. We literally suck them up. We want to know the beginning, the middle, and the end. And if you can think about what that narrative for you is, the stories that you tell, you start to elevate yourself above the competition. You start to pique people's interest. People remember stories. If you go to a networking event and you shake someone's hand, you don't really remember their name and their business title. You remember something about them. If they told you that they've just come back from 2 weeks paragliding in the Andes, you're going to remember that. But you might not remember data controller, European sales division. You know, that sort of stuff just doesn't stick. So I really invite you to think about your story. What story are you telling? And what do you want your audience to remember? To give you the final ingredient, then, of a business that shines, I want to talk about this word, energy. And I got a massive lesson in this at the premiere of the film. So we're going to fast forward through the making of the film, and I want to take you to summer 2004. And the release of a big blockbuster movie is an absolute whirlwind. You spend weeks locked in a hotel room with hundreds of journalists coming to talk to you. You end up on breakfast TV. You go and do radio interviews. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself at a red carpet premiere. And it is the strangest thing. you'll ever experience. You go from being someone, a complete nobody, to suddenly having girls screaming your name and asking for your autograph as you walk down the red carpet. You've got paparazzi flashing their photographs and their bulbs at you everywhere. There are TV journalists thrusting microphones into your face. And it's absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's amazing, but it's crazy. And that was just the beginning for us. So we had the premiere in London, Leicester Square, and then the next morning at 8 a.m., we boarded a flight to Tokyo in Japan. And the Japanese are absolutely nuts about Thunderbirds, and things got really, really weird. If anyone's watched Lost in Translation, the film Lost in Translation, it was just like that. Like beautiful hotel suites, and then crazy sort of appearances on game shows. At one point, I was in the ring with a sumo wrestler for absolutely no reason, and lots and lots of karaoke. So the premiere itself was at the Budokan, where the Beatles had played. So we had 6,000 people in the auditorium. But it was on the third day of the tour, and if I'm being completely honest, by that time I was exhausted. I kind of got nothing left to give. If I could have had the choice, I'd have liked to have gone back to my hotel suite, curled up in a ball, and gone to sleep. But working with real professionals, people like Sir Ben Kingsley, had just taught me something. And he'd said to me that you have a responsibility to your audience. And that really stuck with me. So as I turned up at the premiere, I had to have a little conversation with myself, and I had to kind of think about the people that had come from all over Tokyo to be there. And they were there to see me. And I had an obligation to come and meet their energy, to show up for them, not just to do what I wanted to do. So the premiere began, and we came through the floor on a hydraulic platform, like loads of lights and music and smoke and everything like that. And I looked out at 6,000 people in the auditorium, and it was amazing. And it was all about the way that we held ourselves, the way that we interacted with them. The energy that they brought to us was absolutely infectious. So I'd like you to think about the energy that you show up with. We constantly work with businesses where we meet with managers and leaders, and they say, you know what, I've got a great message, but it's just not landing. And then you go in and you kind of dig a bit deeper, and you go and watch a few meetings and everything, and you get this sort of thing. Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Like, no, you're not. Yeah? You're not. We have to bring our energy to our audience if we want them to come on the journey with us. And it's not just in communicating one-to-one in meetings and that sort of thing. Think about your marketing messages. Think about how you show up on Facebook. Think about how you show up on Twitter, how regular your blog is. All of these things are a product of your energy, of how you put yourself out there. So, communication isn't just a soft skill. It's at the heart of our brands. It's at the heart of everything that we do. It creates leverage. When you focus on your performance, you start to make deeper connections. You accelerate change and growth, and you turn customers into raving fans. What would happen in your businesses if you improved your communication by 5%, by 25%, by 100%? Just think about what you could achieve. At my business, Inflow Training, we've been lucky enough to work with some amazing companies on things like presentations, meetings, pitching, negotiations, working with graduates on personal brand, and the results have been amazing. I absolutely love my job. It's what gets me out of bed excited each morning when I think about the impact that focusing on your performance can achieve. So I invite you to take this stuff back into your organizations tomorrow morning and share it. Get connected to your stance. Approach things with honesty. Get clear on your intention. Think about that narrative and show up with energy. In order to help you do this stuff, I've created a little ebook that will take you through each of those ingredients. So if you head over to inflowtraining.com/Riga, put in your name and your email address, you'll get that PDF within about 15 minutes. If you'd rather just give me your business card at some point later, then I'll do all the hard work for you. I'd love to stay connected with you, so please do drop me an email, dominic@inflowtraining.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Twitter. All the world's a stage, and no matter what our job title, every day we all have an important role to play for our organizations, for our teams, for ourselves. There are Hollywood movie moments. The choice is yours. Do you want to stay in the shadows, or do you want to step into the spotlight? It's your time to shine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paldies. Thank you very much. So I want to ask you, are you ready to shine?
Come on, a bit more.
Thank you, girls. 3 of them.
I worked really hard. I put a lot of energy in.
Yes, you did everything you could. Vai ir kāds jautājums, lūdzu, vai izaicinājums? Any questions, objections, or... Let's start with the ladies.
Hello, I'm Ilona from Abilene.
Hello.
And my question is, what is your dream role?
What is my...
Dream role.
My dream role? I'm no longer working as an actor, but actually my dream role, my vision, is to help businesses reconnect with the spoken word. So I absolutely take what we talked about in terms of being digital, but I think we have to have a combination of the two. I find it really sad when you walk down the street and everyone's just on their smartphone and they're not looking up and they're not connecting with each other. So that's my big role. My big role is sort of spreading this message. If a few of you walk out here today and you put the smartphone in your pocket and have a conversation with someone at the back rather than sending an email, then I'm a very happy man.
Every person, before he or she moves into something very deeply and passionately, has a trauma. So what was your trauma to make you do this?
Wow, that's a very deep question. If I'm very honest in that answer, when I was 7 years old, I lost my sister. And she was an amazing young woman. She had heart problems, but she was the epitome of energy. She was ill from the day that she was born, but she just always had so much life and so much vibrancy. And she would kick the ball around with you, and she'd be the last person standing. She'd go bright blue because there wasn't enough oxygen pumping around her system, but she was just able to shine. So she's my inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Carlos, and I'm an architect. And my question is, I just want to hear your American accent. How does it work?
I'm very expensive if you have to listen to my American accent. I'll give you a private showing of it.
Carlos, that was a very long time ago. All right, by the way, British accent is just... any other questions, please?
There's one here.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Diana. I have heart in my mouth right now.
Use your stance.
Aplausos, atbalstam! Jūs zināt, kāda tā sajūta?
The audience is too huge for me for this moment. I'm sorry. I'm a hairstylist, and I'm the owner of the place named Kitchen Hair Lab at Antonius 22. Okay.
So that's the invitation, I guess.
Okay.
So
okay.
I have a question for you, Dominic.
Yeah.
What was exactly this movement for you when you decided to change your career, when you decided to switch, because you were so passionate about, and you was telling us the stories, how exactly you want it, and you was moving to it, so what's happened?
Okay, so that's a great question, thank you. For me, it was the thing about values. It was about being honest. So I think that sometimes we feel like we mustn't change. We feel like if we change, other people will notice and they might say bad things about us. And when you're in the public light a little bit like I was, that can be a little bit of a difficult thing to do. But actually, working as an actor was no longer fulfilling a lot of the things that were very important to me. My wife was in the profession as well. She was working in the theatre in the West End. We never saw each other. I was off travelling filming. She was working 8 shows a week. We wanted to start a family. I started to get a bit frustrated with the whole kind of process of the industry. And I thought, you know what, I'm not making a difference. I'm not making the difference that I want to make. So I've got to find another channel for this. And there's a long story to how I got to here, but essentially that was the catalyst. It was about thinking about my values, being true to who I was again, and going, you know what, it's a risk, but I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to do something new, and I absolutely love what I do now. Who knows what I'll be doing in 15 years, 20 years. So.
Back in acting.
Yeah, maybe.
Thank you. Mums ir vēl laiks kādam jautājumam, droši. Jautājumi, questions, please. What about objections? No. Okay, then I do have one question. Is that true that there are like talkers, communicators, and then there are planners, doers, you know? Because we've seen in lots of cases that there's a team, and some people are taking care of strategy, some people are taking care of project or product, and then some people are just being there in case somebody has a question.
Yeah.
Is that true?
So I think I think very quickly there are 4 types of people. There are head people. There are the people that kind of think very logically. There are heart people, which they're just all about going out and connecting to other people, forming relationships, having teams. There's those kind of gut people. They're slightly crazy. They're kind of like impulsive. Or I like a bit of this, I like a bit of that. Tend to be much more creative. And then there are the feet people that kind of go out and get things done. They have a goal. They're driven. They know where they're going. All 4 of those have an ability to communicate a vision, to communicate a message. So just because you have a preference for kind of one of those ways of operating doesn't mean that you can't connect. So I don't believe that there's anyone who is a bad public speaker, anyone that can't communicate. I think it's about communicating in the way that's right for you. So when we work with clients, I don't suggest that you come out and you kind of use your hand gestures and everything as I do and make yourself as kind of big and flexible as I am. I'm interested in you and what it is about you that's special and how you turn that up so that people can see it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hope for a lot of people here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dominic Colenso. Thank you very much.
Thank you.